Please remember that the complete information for the class that you are about to view is at elithecomputerguy.com. Not only do we have our videos there, but we have part lists, diagrams, pictures, and even complete code examples. So if you are watching this video and you want more information, please go to elithecomputerguy.com. Welcome back. As you know, I am Eli the Computer Guy, and in today's class I'm going to be showing you how to install Samba onto your Raspberry Pi OS on your Raspberry Pi. So let's say you're creating Raspberry Pi projects, but you don't want to actually have to physically write the code on the Raspberry Pi itself. You look at the Thani IDE and you think, that looks like a crappy IDE. I would prefer to actually be able to do my code, actually write out all my code on my laptop or whatever my primary driver is, and then simply be able to copy and paste that code over to the Raspberry Pi rather seamlessly. Well, by installing Samba, essentially what you're able to do is you're able to create file shares on your Raspberry Pi operating system that are accessible from the desktop from a Mac or a Windows computer. So just like you would go into a network and you would be able to basically double click into servers or be able to double click into shares on the network, you will now be able to do that once you've installed Samba onto your Raspberry Pi OS. It is important to understand that whenever you're trying to do anything in the Linux world, there's always multiple ways to actually try to accomplish something. So many times when people try to upload code or download code from a Raspberry Pi, they would use FTP, File Transfer Protocol. The thing is with that, generally you need an additional client, something like FileZilla, and you have to go through a whole process to actually be able to upload code onto your Raspberry Pi. That can be a little bit cumbersome. If you have your Raspberry Pi on the same network as your primary computer though, by installing Samba, again, what this allows you to do is you can simply copy and paste. You can basically interact with the file share on your Raspberry Pi OS just like you would any other folder or file that you're used to in a normal desktop operating system. So I'm going to be showing you how to install Samba today and how to do the basic configurations. So the warning for today's class is I'm going to show you how to install Samba, and I'm going to show you how to do the basic configurations in order to be able to share folders with Samba. The thing is we're not going to go deeply into Linux security in this particular class. So if you do everything that I show you how to do today, you are going to be able to copy and paste files and folders onto your Raspberry Pi. But essentially, there's got to be no security here. There's got to be no security. The files and folders that you're going to be putting on your Raspberry Pi are going to be wide open. So you're going to need to go in and you're going to need to configure the permissions properly if you actually want to close down these files and folders to actually make your environment secure. So what I'm going to be showing you today is very good for your own personal lab environment. So my little lab environment in my house with multiple layers of routers between me and the internet, something like this is completely fine. Again, if you're in your home, if you're in your own environment, this is great. To be clear, if you are in a production environment and you do what I tell you to do today and you don't add any other security, you probably should not be in this job. Should not be in this job. So I just want to make that clear here. We are not going into security. Security is an additional thing. I've done classes before on how to deal with file and folder security in Linux. So go take a look at those and then actually close down the security on the files and folders that you're going to be having on your Raspberry Pi. But the cool part about Samba is if you understand file and folder security, adding Samba to your Raspberry Pi is actually like shockingly easy. Like within a couple of minutes, you can have your file shares up and running, and then, like I say, you can actually be doing all of your code in whatever IDE you prefer on your primary computer, and then you can simply copy and paste that code to the Raspberry Pi and go from there. So with that, let's go over to the Raspberry Pi, and I will show you how to install Samba and how to do the configurations. Okay, so here we are, my Raspberry Pi. So this is a completely clean install. The only thing that I have added is Apache 2. So I have installed the Apache 2 web server just so we have a folder that we can share, so I can give you a bit of a demonstration there. So we do 127.0.0.1, we can see that we get the default Apache page coming up. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to actually install Samba. So we're going to open up our terminal, and then in order to install Samba, literally all we have to do is sudo apt-get install Samba. And then that's all we're going to need to do to install Samba. So it's going to ask you if we want to. We do yes. And then we're going through and it's doing the configurations to actually be able to install Samba. So here, if your computer gets its IP address information from a DHCP server, blah, 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 you may also have WINS servers. So this is something that I would say you might just want to say yes. If you don't know whether or not you have WINS servers, you might as well say yes here just in case. So WINS was basically a Microsoft variation of DNS that they tried to make successful years ago. There may be reasons that this will actually help within your particular network environment. So unless you know that you don't need WINS, I would say yes here. I don't think it really should cause you any problems if you say yes. Then it's going to go through and it's going to keep, unpacking all the stuff and actually is going to install Samba for us. It's a pretty quick little process here. Again, all told, it'll take about a minute or so to actually install Samba. So the installation is done now, and what I want to do is I want to create a folder that's actually going to be shared on the network initially. So I'm going to go up here to this file manager. I'm going to open this, and as we can see here, I'm logged in as Pi. So I'm under root, the home directory, and Pi. What I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, I'm going to do a new folder, and here I'm simply going to say share. I'm then going to do OK. So this will be the file share. Then what I need to do is we are going to need to deal with permissions just a little bit. I can right click on this share. I can go down to properties and then I can modify the permissions. So view contents anyone, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change. You can change the contents to anyone and access the contents to anyone. So basically this is going to make this particular folder wide open for the Raspberry Pi. Then I'm going to simply click OK. Click yes, and now that security is done. From here, what we need to do is we actually need to modify the Samba configuration file. So I'm going to type in sudo nano. Now, if you followed me for any length of time, you know I prefer Vim. I'm just a Vim guy, right? Text editors in the Linux world, different people like different text editors. I generally prefer Vim, but do you know why we're using Nano? Because it's the default installed in Raspberry Pi, and it doesn't really matter. Again, when you're modifying configuration files, it doesn't really matter what text editor you're using. Since Nano is already installed with Raspberry Pi, we're just going to use that because, that's how I roll. Then we're going to go under root, under etc, under Samba, and then we're going to go to the smb.conf configuration file. So do sudo nano, so that's a file editor, etc samba smb conf. And when we do this, it's going to open up this SMB configuration file, and these are the configurations for Samba. There's some interesting configurations in here, and I actually probably will do a more sophisticated Samba class going into the future, but all we really need to do right now is literally just go to the end of the file. We're not going to worry about any of these other configurations. Those are cool, neat, amazing configurations that I should teach you about at some point. But right now, I'm not going to deal with those configurations. What I'm going to do is down here at the bottom, I can actually add the configurations for the folder that's going to be shared from this particular server. So when I do the brackets, I'm going to do these brackets, and basically whatever is between these black brackets is going to be the name of the share. So we have a shared folder, and we're going to simply call it share, right? And literally you could call it Bob. You could call it whatever you want, and that's what will actually show up on the on the network neighborhood or whatever. Then we're going to go down, we're going to tab in, and then we're going to say what the path is. So path is going to equal, and then we're going to do home, pi, share, right? So if we go up here, basically we're going to go here. So this is the folder path we want to go. So /home, /pi, /share. Basically, whatever the name of this folder is, that's what you got to put here. So if you put something else, that's fine. Then we're going to go here to read, to say read only, and we're going to equal no, because we actually want to be able to write to this. Then we're going to do public equals yes, because this is going to be public. We want it to be accessible. And then we're going to say writable, and we're also going to equal yes. So basically, this is all we need to do here. So we say what the name of the share is going to be. We say what the path to that shared folder is going to be. Before we've done this, though, we do have to make sure that the security for this particular folder is correct. Again, that's where you do right-click properties. You can go to permissions, make sure anyone can get to it, or however you want the security to be. Read-only equals no, because we want to be able to write to it. Public equals yes, because we want to make it accessible. And writable equals yes, because we want to be able to write to it. From here, we're going to Control X. Save modified buffer. We are going to say yes. Then this here, you just hit enter. So basically it's saying what file name do you want to write to. So if you wanted to modify the file name for some reason, you can modify it here. We don't want to modify the file name. We want it to be the exact same thing. We want to have it saved as smb.conf. So we're going to simply hit enter, and now that's what you've got. So basically now this share is going to be accessible from the network. But before we go over to the demonstration computer, I do need the IP address. So if we're actually going to be accessing the server, we need to know what the IP address is. So I'm simply going to type in IP address, and it will give us our IP address. So we take a look here. We've got the loop back, and here is our Ethernet address, 192.168.1.23. It's a 24 subnet mask, so I can now use this to actually be able to access this server from my demonstration computer. So let's go over to the demonstration computer, and I should be able to pull this up. So we can come here, I can go to Go, I can do Connect Server. We can see SMB 192.168.1.23. We can click on Connect. It's trying to connect. I'm simply going to do Guest because it should be wide open. We're then going to do Connect. It's going to offer us that shared folder. We are going to do OK, and now we are in the shared folder. So if I want to do something, let's say I have these screenshots. So again, let's say I'm creating a website, or basically I just want to be able to very easily upload these files to the server. Basically, I can just take those, I can literally copy and paste. Then we go back to my Raspberry Pi. We can go to the folder, we can go to share, and now we can see that these images are now simply sitting in that folder. So again, this is especially important. Like if you need to upload like a lot of graphics files, you need to upload a lot of different like code files, that type of thing. This is something that you should think about doing. So one of the things that we can also do here is we can create an additional share on this particular Raspberry Pi for something such as the website, right? So as I showed you before, if we open up the web browser, I do have the web server running on here. So if we do 127.0.0.1, right, that brings us to this default web page. So what if I want to actually be able to edit this page or put in a new page from my laptop computer? What I can do is I can go here. Let's clear the screen. The first thing that I need to do is I need to change the ownership of the HTML folder. So again, this gets a little bit into security, but hopefully you can follow along. So we're going to do sudo. We're going to change own to pi of /var/www/HTML. Right, so the HTML folder is the one that we care about. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the owner of this folder to the user pi. So currently the HTML folder is owned by root. So when it's a default installation, it's owned by root. This can be a pain in the butt when you're trying to actually do some modifications and some edits. So we're simply going to change the owner to pi, and then we're going to hit enter, and so now the owner is pi. Then the next thing that I'm going to do, also to make my life easier, is I'm going to do sudo change mod, chmod, 777. Basically what this is going to do is this is going to give full permissions to the HTML folder, so I can access it very easily from my my laptop computer. Again, this is something that you have to be careful about from a security perspective. You do not want to do this in a production environment, again, because it's going to make this folder completely open for the network. But again, in a demonstration, a lab environment, this will make your life a lot easier. Then I'll hit enter, and so now pi is the owner of the HTML folder, and the HTML folder now is completely open as far as permissions are concerned. So past that, what I then want to do is I want to go back and I want to reopen the smb.conf file, and I want to add a new share for that HTML directory. I'm going to open this up. We come back to the smb.conf file. We are going to scroll all the way down again. Again, we're not going to mess with any of this. All this cool stuff up here, we're not going to mess with. We're going to come down here, and then we are going to go, oh, I don't know, what do you want to say? Web root. So we're just going to create a share called web root, and then we're going to close the bracket. So remember, anything in the bracket, that's going to be what the name of the share is. Then for this, we're going to say is path equals / var / www / html. Then we're going to make a read only equals no. Then we're going to say public equals yes. Then we're going to say writable equals yes also. So make sure I did not fat finger anything since this is a class. I think all of that looks good. So then what we're going to do is we're going to do Control X to exit. Do we want to save? Yes, we want to save. Do we want to save it as this file name? We just simply hit enter here because of yes. And so now that is being shared out. We then just also for good measure should actually restart the Samba service. So we can simply do sudo service. And then for the Samba service, it's a little bit different. It's SMBD, so SMB daemon, and then we simply do restart. And once we do that, that'll restart the service. And so from there, we can actually go back to my demonstration computer. From here, we can go up, we can do go. Again, we can connect to server 192.168.1.23. We can do connect, and now we can see that there's share and there's web root. So I can click on web root, and I have now accessed the web root folder. So we can see that the index file is there. So if I want to go in and I want to modify that or edit that somehow, I could do that. I could also simply move it to trash. So if I literally want to get rid of it, I could simply delete it, and now it's gone. And if I then go back to the Raspberry Pi, I then come here, reopen the web browser, and I go to 127.0.0.1. We can see that we now get an error because that web page no longer exists. So if I wanted to create a web page again on my laptop or my primary computer and be able to simply copy and paste over, I can now do that. And so that's really all there is to setting up a Samba server on your Raspberry Pi OS and how to configure the shares. With it, just make sure you do remember the IP address. So make sure to get the IP address. You can actually connect to the Raspberry Pi. Also restart the Samba service. If you're having any issues with connecting to your Raspberry Pi using the files and folders that connect on your computer, restart the Samba service. And then again, do realize this is completely wide open, so this is not a secure installation by any stretch of the imaginations, so be careful with that. So there you go. Now you know how to install Samba onto your Raspberry Pi. Again, to be clear, the installation and the configurations that I showed you how to do today are very, very, very basic. Again, imagine this is for a little demonstration environment. Again, this is for your desk. You're trying to figure out how to write some code, that type of thing for the Raspberry Pi. You would prefer to be able to write that code on your primary computer and then be able to just copy and paste it over to your Raspberry Pi. What I showed you how today, that will work very good for that particular situation. If you then want to put your Raspberry Pi into a production environment, no. Make sure you lock down the security and figure out all the Linux security and all that kind of stuff. Again, what I showed you how to do today is wide open, which makes it easier for you in a lab environment to work on, but makes it just horribly vulnerable. It's just wide open. It literally is just wide open. The other thing to realize too is that with the Samba server software, there is more to it. You can actually do a lot of interesting things with Samba. I just literally showed you how to do the file shares today because again, in the Raspberry Pi OS environment, that's basically just what I wanted to focus on. But the Samba software itself, you can do a lot of interesting things, and I probably will do a more complicated, more in-depth class on that going into the future. If you want to learn more about it, again, by all means, go out there, do a Google search. There's lots of tutorials, and you might actually be surprised with how powerful Samba can be. And again, how powerful Samba can be on a simple little Raspberry Pi. If you want something like a file server for your local network, let's say you have a business and you simply want to spin up a little file server, plug in some USB hard drive that may have 2 or 3 terabytes of storage on it, simply using a Raspberry Pi with Samba might actually solve all your problems. You may not need a active, Microsoft Active Directory server that's going to cost you $3,000. Literally a $50 Raspberry Pi, Samba, and a USB hard drive that you plug into it, that may actually do more than you need it to. So just one of those things to be thinking about if you want to look into Samba a little bit more. So as always, I enjoyed doing this class. Look forward to seeing you on the next one. If you like the content that I create, please think about going to elithecomputerguy.com and becoming a member or donating. Please understand that all of the educational videos are in front of the paywall. That includes the videos, that includes the notes, the diagrams, and the code example. All of that is freely available and in front of the paywall. But if you want to watch opinion videos or if you want to be able to comment, you do need to become a member. Membership is $5 a month or $60 a year and gives you access to those opinion videos and the ability to comment. If you don't want to become a member, you just want to give a one-time donation, there's also a donate button where you can do that. Please understand, in order to provide the education that I am, it does cost money. Servers cost money, equipment costs money, travel costs money. All of these things cost a reasonable amount of money, and the fact of the matter is YouTube's advertising program no longer supports creators the way that it used to. So if you want these classes to continue to stick around and you find them to be valuable, please think about either becoming a monthly member or donating a few dollars for this project.